Good afternoon, everyone. So today's session, my discussion uh, of today's session is on histamines and antihistamines. Now, histamines are the mediators, autocoids, which are produced in the lungs, GIT, in the gastric mucosa, and they're responsible for various mechanisms like they increase gastric secretion. They are responsible for itching and pain, and the lungs they cause bronchoconstriction, and in the skin they cause vasodilatation. All these functions, and hence the antihistamines are the drugs which are you have which block the action of histamines. So I'm going to discuss histamine and antihistaminic drugs. Now, what are autocoids? Autocoids means these are produced at the local autocrine in nature. They are locally produced, they function locally, and they are degraded locally at the site of site of synthesis of release, which they will be produced locally in the tissue of autocoid, and they are acting locally in the tissue, and then they get degraded in the tissue at that particular site only. Now, autocoids can be amine autocoids in which histamine, hydroxytryptamine is there. Then lipid-derived autocoids like prostaglandin, serotonin, platelet activating factors are there. Leukotrienes are there, and peptide analogs are bradykinin and angiotensin, which are involved in the CEBS. Bradykinin and angiotensin. Now I'm going to discuss with you the amine autocoid, which is histamine. Now, histamine, I will discuss first of all, the overview is I will discuss the sources of histamine from where they are obtained, the histamine receptors, the histamine effects, then antihistamines. I will discuss H1 receptor antagonist, H1 blockers, first generation, second generation, third generation, and then H2 receptor antagonist, H2 blockers I will discuss. Now, first of all, synthesis. Now, the histamine it is produced from the histidine amino acid by the action of decarboxylase. It forms histamine, and it is metabolized in the body by methylation and oxidation. By methylation, by N-methyl transferase, it forms N-methylhistamine, which forms methyl acetic acid by the action of oxidase, and by the diamine oxidase, it forms a acetic acid. Storage is that it is stored in the basophils, eosinophils, and in the mast cells. And this is complex. It is positively charged, and it is complex with the negatively charged proteins and heparin molecules in the mast cells. And thus, it is positively charged, and it is a complex with negatively charged protein and heparin molecules. Now, histamine, it is responsible for producing the local immune responses, and it also regulates the physiological function in the gut, and it acts as the neurotransmitter. So it is responsible for pain, itching. It increases the transmission of the release of adrenaline in the brain and in the body. Sources are we get the histamine from plants, venoms, stings, and just synthesized by bacteria and certain fungi. Now, unevenly distributed throughout the body, it is found in mast cells, basophils, neurons in the CNS, and in enterochromaffin-like cells in the GAT. In the stomach, it is obtained from these cells. And tissues in which it is mostly occurring are skin, lung, and gastrointestinal tract. Released immunologically by the immediate type 1 type of hypersensitivity reaction, it is released in the body. Pharmacologically, it is obtained from the various drugs. Some these drugs stimulate the histamine release in the body, and the drugs which stimulate the histamine release in the body are morphine, tuberculin, succinylcholine, radiocontrast media, vancomycin, dextrone, polyvinyl pyrrolidine. These are the various drugs which are responsible for release of histamine in the body. Physical stimuli like scratching the skin can also lead to release of histamine. This I have done how the primary action release of histamine from the mast cells. and they are called histamine liberators. What do they do is they will produce the anaphylactoid reaction, and anaphylactoid reaction is itching, burning sensation, flushing, urticaria, fall in BP, tachycardia, headache, colic, and asthma. These are the various symptoms of the anaphylactoid reaction. There will be angioedema, bronchoconstriction, itching, redness, flushing, urticaria, fall in BP. Most of the symptoms of anaphylactoid reactions are controlled by H1 receptor blockers, and H2 blockers, they are also known to control the anaphylactoid reaction. Immunological response is whenever the antigen is patient person is exposed to antigen like dust, pollen grains, any foreign particle, there will be activation of the antibodies, IgE antibodies on the surface of mast cells, which are located on the Fc receptor. Antigen antibody reaction will take place, and which will lead to uh, lysis of the mast cells, leading to liberation of the histamines in the body. Release of secondary and primary mediators are released, and they will produce vasodilatation, vascular leakage, exudation of the fluid from the vessels will be there, and there will be smooth muscle contraction also. And late phase can lead to, there can be mucosal edema, mucus secretion, leukocyte infiltration, epithelial damage, and bronchospasm. All these are the various physiological changes which occurs, immunological changes and physiological changes which occurs when histamine is released in the body. This is how the antigen antibody reaction occurs, and it will activate tyrosine protein kinase. And this tyrosine protein kinase, there is phospholipase C will be activated. It will activate phospholipase C, which will convert phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate to inositol triphosphate. And when this inositol triphosphate is produced, it will cause the release of calcium ions from the granules, and release of calcium oil from the granules will lead to more exocytosis of the histamine granules from the synaptic vesicles. And this histamine, it is negatively charged, sorry, it is positively charged, it is linked with protamine and heparin. And this in the synapse, the sodium and calcium ions, they get exchanged with the histamine. Histamine is liberated, and sodium and calcium ions, they get combined with protamine and heparin. Now, histamine receptors, there are basically four types of histamine receptors. They are H1, H2, H3, and H4. Basically, the H1, H2, and H3 receptors I'm going to discuss. These are the H1 receptor is the GQ type of the GQ type of the G protein coupled receptor. Its action is that it will activate the IP3 DHE pathway, and it will lead to smooth muscle contraction. It is present, H1 is present in smooth muscles, in the blood vessels, in the afferent nerve endings, in the ganglionic cell, in adrenal medulla, and in brain. In the smooth muscles, it is responsible for smooth muscle contraction. In the blood vessels, it is present in the endothelium, which will lead to release of endothelial derived relaxing factor, leading to vasodilatation and increased capillary permeability. In the smooth muscles, it is responsible for vasoconstriction also, and thus in the afferent nerve endings, it will cause stimulation leading to pain and itching. Pruritus and pain will be there, and inflammation will be produced. In ganglionic cells, there will be stimulation. Release of catecholamines from the adrenal medulla will lead to increase in BP, and in the brain also it is a transmitter leading to pain and itching. In and H2 receptors, basically H2 receptors are present in gastric glands, that is in the stomach, which are responsible for gastric acid secretion. They are GS type of the H2 receptors. G stimulatory, work by increasing the action of cyclic AMP. Blood vessels, they will be vasodilatation, and they have a positive inotropic and chronotropic effect. atria, there will be positive chronotropic effect, means there will be in positive rate of conduction, and ventricles, there will be positive inotropic force of contraction will be increased. And in the brain also, it is responsible for the transmission of the nerve impulses leading to itching and pain. And this H3 type of receptors, these are the autoreceptors, these are presynaptic receptors, and these are GI type of the G protein coupled receptors. They lead to inhibition of the histamine release, leading to sedation. Histamine stimulation will lead to wakefulness because it activates the reticular activating system in the brain, which will lead to wakefulness. And when there is inhibition of the histamine release, there will be sedation. In the lungs, spleen, and the skin, it will decrease the histamine content, and it inhibits the H1 mediated action. In the blood vessels, it will inhibit the noradrenaline release, leading to vasodilatation. Now, actions I have done on the smooth muscles in the bronchiolar, there will be bronchoconstriction because of the stimulation of the smooth muscles by the H1 receptors. In the GIT, there will be stimulation of H2 receptors, leading to increased gastric secretion, increased peristalsis by the H1 receptors. Genitourinary tract, there will be dysmenorrhea, increased uterine contractions will be there, and there will be dysmenorrhea. Vascular, there will be vasodilatation, and because of the release of epidermal derived relaxing factor, and which will lead to vasodilatation. And there is appearance of the redness, wheal, and flare on each on just there will be appearance of redness, peel, and flare. Redness is due to vasodilatation of the capillaries. Wheal is due to there will be wheal due to increased capillary permeability because of the increased exudation of the fluid from the capillaries and arterioles. And flare will be due to axon reflux. There will be vasodilatation of the arterioles, and there will be axon reflux leading to flare. CVS heart, it will have the negative dromotropic effect due to stimulation of the H1 receptors, and positive chronotropic and inotropic effect. This negative dromotropic effect will lead to negative conduction velocity, decrease in conduction velocity, atrioventricular conduction velocity, positive inotropic increasing in the force of contraction, and chronotropic increasing in the rate of contraction. Blood vessels, I have discussed, it is there will be vasodilatation because of release of nitric oxide and epidermal like growth relaxing factor. Nervous system, sensory nerve endings will be stimulated. They will be there will be afferent nerve impulses will be stimulated, leading to pain and itching. Autonomic ganglia and adrenal medulla will be stimulated, leading to release of the adrenaline, leading to increase in BP. CNS, there will be stimulation of the reticular activating system, leading to wakefulness. Glands will be stimulated, there will be increased secretions. Metabolic effects will be that there will be increase in BMR and increase in lipid profile. This is intradermal injection of histamine, which will produce redness, wheal, and flare. Redness, wheal, and flare. I've already done redness is due to vasodilatation of the capillaries. Wheal uh, is due to exudation of the fluid from the arterioles and venules, and flare is due to axon reflux. These are all signs, and these are all pathophysiological changes which occur due to histamine. There will be increased gastric secretion, smooth muscle contraction, mucus secretion, endothelial permeability will increase, stimulation of nociceptive nerve fibers leading to pruritus, flushing, urticaria. There will be tachycardia, positive inotropic, chronotropic effect, vasodilatation, and in the CNS there will be headache because of the dilatation of the cranial blood vessels, and there will be nausea and vomiting due to stimulation of the CTZ center, and or in the cardiovascular system, there will be hypotension, cardiac arrhythmia, and anaphylaxis. In the GAT, there can be abdominal cramps because of increased contraction of the smooth muscles, diarrhea, and in the genital urinary tract, there can be dysmenorrhea. And the respiratory tract, there can be bronchoconstriction, dyspnea, and nasal obstruction, and rhinorrhea and sneezing. Pathophysiological roles are these are responsible for producing gastric secretions. They produce allergic phenomena as the neurotransmitter. They can produce the release of the adrenaline, and also pain, itching, pruritus will be produced. Tissue growth and repair is done by the histamine, and headache because of the vasodilatation of the cranial blood vessels. Now, antihistaminics I'm going to discuss. First is H1 antagonist. Now, H1 antagonists have been divided into first generation and second generation. First generation, which are highly sedative, they are diphenhydramine, dimenhydrinate, promethazine, hydroxyzine. Moderately sedative are phenyramine, cyproheptadine, antazolone, meclizine, buclizine, cinnarizine. Mildly sedative is chlorpheniramine, dextro dexchlorphenamine, triprolidine, cyclizine, clemastine. These are the mildly sedative. And second generation compounds, these are terfenadine, fixofenadine, cetirizine, levocetirizine, loratadine, desloratadine, estimazole, azelastine, mesolastine, avastin, dupatadine. The difference between first generation and second generation antihistaminics are that first generation are responsible for they can cross the blood-brain barrier, so they cause the sedation. Plus, they have the anti-serotonergic, anti-adrenergic, and anticholinergic actions. And this anticholinergic action will produce various side effects, like they can be dry mouth, decreased secretions, blurring of vision, tachycardia, urinary retention. And this H2 generation, H2 second generation compounds, they do not cross the blood-brain barrier, so they do not cause the sedation, and they do not have any anticholinergic effect also. So they are only used in the treatment of allergy. That is, in the common cold or rhinitis, or in allergy, we can use the antihistaminics. In allergic conjunctivitis or in allergic rhinitis, we can use the second generation antihistaminics. Pharmacological action is they block the histamine-induced bronchoconstriction, so contraction of the histamine, intestinal and other smooth muscles. Means they will be helpful in the they are used in the bronchial asthma because they reduce the bronchoconstriction. They also reduce the contraction of the intestinal and other smooth muscles. Triple response does not come. This is wheal, flare, and itch does not come. Fall in BP is blocked by low doses of histamine. By the low doses of histamine, the fall in BP is blocked. By the low dose of histamine, there is fall in BP, which is blocked by the antihistaminic drugs. Constriction of large blood vessels is also blocked by the antihistaminic drugs. Release of adrenaline is abolished, and they cannot antagonize the action of histamine on gastric acid secretion, because H1 receptors, they only act at the smooth muscles and in the blood vessels and in brain and in nerve terminals, in glands, but they do not act on the uh, gastric tissue in the stomach. So in the gastric tissue, H2 receptors are present, so they do not antagonize the action of histamine on gastric acid secretion. They are responsible for anti-allergic reaction because type 1 hypersensitivity reactions will be suppressed. So there will be no urticaria, itching, angioedema, anaphylactoid reaction, and foreign BP will be prevented. And they cause the CNS depression. As histamine was known to cause wakefulness, they cause CNS depression. Excitement and convulsions can be there at toxic doses, and they also reduce antihistamines. They are having the anticholinergic action, central anticholinergic action, so they reduce the effect of Parkinsonisms. So they will reduce tremors, rigidity, and siloria, that is the increased salivation of Parkinsonism. Anticholinergic action high with promethazine and diphenhydramine by the H1 first generation H1 receptors. low with chlorpheniramine and hydroxyzine, minimal or absent with mepramine, estamazole, loratadine, cetirizine. These are second generation, so these are having minimal action, anticholinergic action. Local anesthetic effect is also seen by first generation antihistaminic drugs, H1 receptor blockers, by promethazine, phenarazine. They have a membrane stabilizing property, and promethazine has strong and others have weak membrane stabilizing property. So these can be used as local anesthetic, but they cause the irritation when injected subcutaneously. So these are not used as the local anesthetic clinically. They inhibit the neuronal uptake of the noradrenaline H1 blockers. Side effects is the anticholinergic side effects like sedation, diminished alertness and concentration, lightheadedness, motor incoordination, fatigue, tendency to fall asleep. These are the most common side effects. And there is also cognitive impairment by the H1 receptor antagonists, and they can be restlessness, nervousness develops. Second generation compounds are largely free of the CNS effects because they do not control cross the blood-brain barrier, so they are not present in the CNS. So these CNS side effects like lightheadedness, restlessness, nervousness, impaired psychomotor performance, fatigue, motor incoordination, these all will be not seen with second generation antihistaminics. Now next is side effects. Other are anticholinergic side effects like dryness of mouth, alteration of bowel movement, means that there will be constipation, and there will be urinary hesitancy, that is urinary retention, blurring of vision due to anticholinergic property by the first generation antihistaminic drugs like H1 receptor blockers, epigastric distress, headache, contact, dermatitis due to local application can occur. The second generation antihistamines, they do not have the sleepiness, sedation, and they do not potentiate alcohol or benzodiazepines. So these have no anticholinergic side effects as well, and they do not impair the psychomotor performance. Now, second generation antihistaminics, the principal indications are that they can be used in allergic rhinitis and conjunctivitis like hay fever, pollinosis, control sneezing, running, but not blocked nose and red watering itchy eyes. Urticaria, dermographism, atopic eczema, acute allergic reactions to drugs and food. These are the various indications of second generation antihistaminics. And the terfenadine, and this is the, it blocks the cardiac potassium channels in overdose, and has been and uh, known to cause the uh, QT prolongation and torsades T pointers. And when the enzyme inhibitors like erythromycin, ciprofloxacin, ketoconazole, clarithromycin, itraconazole are given with this terfenadine, it will block the calcium cardiac potassium channels, and they will lead to polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. Torsades T pointis will be aggravated when the enzyme inhibition is there, because levels of terfenadine in the body will increase, so there will be toxicity. And this is not seen with azithromycin and fluconazole because these are not enzyme inhibitors. Fixofenadine is the active metabolite of terfenadine, but it does not block the rectifier potassium channels in the heart, does not prolong QT interval. It has been introduced as a substitute of terfenadine free of arrhythmogenic potential. Means it does not cause QT prolongation, and it has been used as the active metabolite of terfenadine. It is used as a substitute of terfenadine, and it is free of the arrhythmogenic potential. Some cases of ventricular arrhythmia in patients with pre-existing long QT interval have been reported, so it's not entirely safe in patients with long QT, bradycardia, or hypokalemia. It does not cause blood-brain barrier, so it does not impair psychomotor performance, does not cause sedation, and is free of the anticholinergic side effects. Now, other drugs which can cause the QG prolongation are terfenadine, and there is another drug like they can be fixofenadine, which can cause, and there is another drug like cetirizine, it can cause QG prolongation. Estimazole, it is also known to cause QG prolongation, and terfenadine accounts for cardiotoxicity. Cardiotoxicity can occur with estimazole also. It is also second generation antihistaminics. Side effect is increased appetite and weight gain and flatulence. Loratadine is another drug which is the H1 receptor antagonist. It is faster acting than estimazole, but it has no cardiac arrhythmia. As it does not cause QT prolongation and torsidity, pointes and ventricular tachycardia is not seen. No interactions are seen with erythromycin and ketoconazole or ciprofloxacin. Uses of antihistaminics are, these are used in allergic disorders because they suppress the type 1 type of hypersensitivity reaction, and common cold is also suppressed, and they are also used in insect bite and IV poisoning which release the histamine. So antihistaminics can be used in these conditions also. Pruritus because they block the nerve neurotransmission in the afferent nerve impulses in the brain. Common cold because they lead to dryness of the secretions, and there is a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction is also suppressed. Motion sickness, the drug used is promethazine, dicyclomine, hyoscine. These are the drugs which are used for the treatment of motion sickness, which is given pre to the traveling, and they have the anticholinergic action, so they reduce the secretions, and they also have the antiemetic action because they block the CTZ center in the brain. And vertigo, they can be used in vertigo because they inhibit the calcium ion influx from the calcium ions influx from the endolymph to the vestibular apparatus, so they will be used. Promethazine can be used in the treatment of vertigo. Pre-anesthetic medication, as they're acting as the local anesthetic drugs, and also they reduce the secretions, and they have the sedative action, so they can be used in pre-anesthetic medication. The drug uses promethazine, dicyclomine, diphenhydrinate. For the cough, we can use, these are used just to reduce the secretions. Antihistamines can be added to reduce the secretions, and they cause bronchodilation because they oppose the bronchoconstricting action. So these do not suppress the central cough center, but they reduce the secretions and they cause bronchodilation. Parkinsonism because they cause anticholinergic side effects. Anticholinergic effects are there, so they will reduce the tremor, rigidity, pill-toning movement of the Parkinsonism by the antipsychotic drugs, which are dopamine antagonists. Acute muscle dystonias can be, which are the side effects of antipsychotic drugs, can be treated by these antihistaminics because these are anticholinergic in nature. As sedatives, hypnotics, and anxiolytics in the brain to produce sedation, they can be used to produce more large quantity of hypnosis and anxiolysis to reduce the anxiety. We can use these drugs. These are the various uses of the histamines, antihistaminic drugs. Not histamine, these are the uses of antihistaminics. H2 antagonists like cimetidine, ranitidine, doxatidine, these are acting at the GIT and they increase the gastric acid secretions. These are H2 receptor blockers. They inhibit the gastric secretion. So that's all for this histamine and antihistamines. I hope you understood the lecture. Happy learning. Thank you.